We're here with Aaron Seigo, who gave this year's keynote talk at Akademy 2010, and just wanted to talk to him about some of the great things that are going on in KDE right now. I guess first and foremost, at the beginning of the presentation, you had some really impressive stats about things that have happened in terms of deployment of KDE in the past couple of years. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where we've spread?
Sure. Yeah, it's been an amazing couple of years for KDE. I remember when we think, one day we'll have millions of users, right? And that seemed like the big goal. These days, our deployments come in the millions of users, which is pretty exciting. So we had just a couple of years back the start of, and then last year the final deployment of 52 million, or Linux to 52 million children in Brazil. It's a really impressively young country. They've got something 160, 170 million people, and something like a third of them are under the age of 21. So this huge chunk of the population still in K-12, around 52 million of them. And they've deployed Linux with KDE on top of it across the school system as the primary teaching operating system. What's even more important, getting a deployment of that size is amazing. Keeping it is, really the trick. It's always if you sell something to someone once, if they buy it a second time, then they actually liked it the first time, right? And we recently had a set of great meetings with them, and they recommitted to another round of deployments in the future, basing it on KDE4. So that was really great. More recently than that even, we had a deployment of 700,000 laptops to students in Portugal. And they were was in two sets. One was 400,000 that was released with KDE 3. And what was neat about that story was they ran into a few issues with KDE 3, nothing unsolvable, but some issues, and they worked through them. And with the second tranche of them, 300,000, they moved to KDE 4. And when they did that, all the problems that they had run into with the KDE 3 installation just went away for them. So it was a really successful, not only sizable deployment, but also a nice transition from KDE 3 to KDE 4. Hardware was the same, but they upgraded KDE. Out of that same project, the same actual device, they shipped 1 million of them to children in Venezuela, which is really cool.
Wow.
And it's not all students. We're doing great elsewhere as well. The country of Germany, it's another one of our strong areas geographically, and they're kind of spreading it throughout the world for us as well. In their embassies everywhere in the world, they're actually running KDE on Linux in their offices now, and that's some 11,000 plus computer systems. And we go on about numerous, both government as well as private sector deployments in Germany and Central Europe. So KDE's been going places we only dreamed of a few years ago in terms of numbers and usage.
So after that segment of your talk, you kind of moved on to some ways that we can continue to build KDE even further, and maybe some things that as a community we could focus on to improve the work that we're doing. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Just because you achieve a successful place today doesn't mean that it's all, you can just rest on your laurels and things are going to be great in the future. And we all know that KDE isn't perfect. There is always room for improvement, and as people who work on KDE, we know it as well or maybe even better than everyone else. And so it's really important to look at ourselves, put the mirror in front of us and go, okay, what can we do better? And so there's 4 areas that I touched on, ranging from how we're involved with Qt, the underlying framework put out by Nokia that we use and have used since the very beginning of KDE. How we can manage and help with public perception of KDE, spreading the word a little more effectively in a more positive light. How we can work on global coordination, because KDE's gone from one team of people at the very beginning. I always like to point out that there are more people working on KDE's Plasma today than worked on all of KDE 1.
Yeah.
And that's just one team within KDE, right? KDE has grown into dozens and dozens of teams, and this causes new challenges for us when we try and do something as a community, as a group, because it's a big group now, right? We had over 400 people at this event, and that's not all of us. So there's some challenges there. But the one that I think is perhaps the most long-term opportunity comes in the form of what I was looking for a word for it, and it took me a while. I think, what word is really, it's one of those things, it's like right on the tip of my tongue, it's a feeling, and I finally stumbled on what felt like the right word anyways, and that's elegance. Our software has a lot of strengths to it, and it does a lot of things well. Sometimes, though, we lack elegance. It's not quite as aesthetically pleasing. It's sometimes not as easy to use, as streamlined to use. Sometimes it's not as consistent as possible. Sometimes the APIs we publish aren't as elegant as they could be. Elegance is a nice word because it can be achieved in a way that fits how we work, iteratively, collectively, integratively. And it's also something that's contextual. You can create an elegant API if you're working on libraries. You can create an elegant user interface if you're working on an email client. And whether you're working on a mobile platform or a desktop platform or a tablet platform, yes, elegance is going to mean something different in the user interface. But it's still, there's a common thread there of elegance, right? Natural forms that are imbued with an aesthetic quality. And so I proposed that we take elegance seriously, that we try and take our technical excellence and marry it with elegance, and that we work on our global elegance, look at some of the small things that we do in our software that could be made better everywhere consistently, as well as look at individual projects and go, how can we increase the elegance there? So I think if we do that over the next few years, we'll have a suite of software that's untouchable. Because I think that's the one little bit that we're really missing right now in terms of what could we do for the best, the most impact. And what was really exciting is there was a lot of discussion afterwards, in the day that followed about it, even that same day, and people really kind of thought about it. It seemed and went, yeah, that's right. We can think about how elegant is this, or how can I make it more elegant. And sometimes that's all it takes, right? Just the right word to trigger the thought process that then turns into action. So I'm excited about that.
Well, I look forward to seeing what comes of all this. And even yesterday, I was sitting upstairs in one of the rooms that you're in and caught one of the developers already calling you over saying, check this out, look how much more elegant this is already. So I think it's definitely catching on. And thanks for taking the time to do this interview. And
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yep.